My name's Rachel Boyle. I'm the Executive Director at the New Zealand Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. And the current refugee crisis is the worst that the world has ever seen. So in the Asia Pacific region, approximately 27 million people have been displaced by climate change, by disasters, and by conflict. Tackling this problem requires international collaboration, it needs research, and it needs the empowerment of local and refugee voices. So today I'm talking to Gal Inanch, one of the co-founders of the Centre for Asia Pacific Studies, or CARPS, and it's a collaboration between the University of Auckland and NTU here in Singapore. So she's going to give us a brief introduction to CARPS. So Gal, can you tell us what CARPS is and about its work in the region?
Okay, thank you, Rachel, very much for giving this opportunity to introduce this newly established center with the efforts of both Singapore and New Zealand. CARPS stands for Center for Asia Pacific Refugee Studies, and I'll take you a little bit, rewind and take you to year 2017. How the plants seeds were planted. I am also the founder of an initiative called Opening Universities for Refugees, which an initiative we've been working with the displaced communities in the region: Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and also for the newly settled refugees in Australia and New Zealand. To encourage universities to open their doors for the displaced youth. And we hosted a 3C forum, which we call the C's stand for Collaborate, Create, and Change. At University of Auckland, because one of the board members of our was Miss Rez Gardi, is a New Zealander, a Kurdish New Zealander, and a human rights activist and international lawyer, and also an alumni of University of Auckland. So we hosted the 3C forum there to investigate and how the newly settled refugees in New Zealand were doing regarding the access to higher education. There, we decided that there is an academic center is needed to research about more displacement in the region. Again, I'm doing a little bit fast forward. For this, the funding came from a philanthropist in Singapore, and it was $500,000, and we founded at University of Auckland, the Center for Asia Pacific Refugee Studies, the only center actually in Asia Pacific region. And University of Auckland was a perfect place for that, because it was the #1 university in impact rankings last year from Times Higher Education. Also, we thought that it would be great for collaboration with Southeast Asia and also Pacific, because our concentration will be on the climate displacement, climate and displacement due to climate change in Pacific Islands. Mostly we would like to concentrate, but at the same time, education in emergencies in Southeast Asia. So this is a little bit of background, how the idea has been introduced and how the money has been came from Singapore. A little bit about perhaps what we do, what we intend to do, our mission and our vision for the coming 5 years. Currently, we're running 2 programs. One is going to start in April, which is called a non-residential postgraduate fellowship program, which we would like to encourage academic studies in the region for young academics, and they don't need to come to University of Auckland to do that. And we came with this idea pre-pandemic, so it will fit perfectly right now.
That's it.
From countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, Hong Kong, Thailand, again Indonesia, to support their master thesis and their PhDs to be converted to policy papers, because there's brilliant academic work happening about forced displacement for the last 2 decades. Yet, as civil society and communities, they don't have access to this knowledge. So center will act as a kind of a hub to bring this academia, but turning to them to policy papers to make change. The other is Open Universities for Refugees. Now it runs as a program under CARPS. We ended the initiative status, and I'm holding a joint appointment at School of Art, Design and Media at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. So I keep working about displacement and education in emergencies in the region, while my fellow co-founder Jay Marlowe, professor at University of Auckland, his concentration is more on resettlement issues in New Zealand and Australia and Pacific. So these are the 2 programs, and the research, as said, Jay is doing more on resettlement. I'm working on education emergencies and also cultural heritage on move, for how heritage, and especially intangible heritage, plays a major role in integration of the newly settled refugees in the region, and education of, how to convert this, academic research to K-12, and work on these, for example, teacher handbooks or student books of that. We are a very small team. One is Jay Marlowe, professor at University of Auckland. Myself is joint appointment ANTU and University of Auckland. Rez Gardi, currently in Iraq and Kurdistan, working with the Yazidi communities as an international lawyer. And Evan Jones is based in Kabul now. He will be in Australia. He's the program coordinator at CARPS. And 16 Barkers that are newly. She recently joined our team. She's based also University of Auckland. She will be leading the non-residential postgraduate fellowship program. Very small team, but we're so excited.
Yes, and very global team, it sounds like.
Exactly, we're all around.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the impact of the pandemic? So we've seen 2020, what impact that's had on the lives of displaced people, mainly in the Asia Pacific region?
A lot. I mean, as you can imagine, mostly these type of crises hit the most vulnerable communities all around the world, not specifically Asia Pacific, but in this case, specifically Asia Pacific, because Asia Pacific is the the space, the geography where majority of the refugees are being hosted, and also the conflicts were creating displacement. So I would like to talk a little bit of first the challenges of it, but at the same time, I want to talk about a little bit opportunities what post-pandemic created. I'll start with the negative, then we'll end with a kind of a high note of how we can, perhaps concentrate on the, the full of the glass. Now, for this, Rachel, if you don't mind, I look at certain figures for my notes. So 2020 actually was the lowest resettlement year on the record. Just over 20,000 refugees were resettled globally. And of course, you can understand the borders were closed, but some countries like Australia, United States, they cut their resettlement quotas as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of, the refugees already were living in limbo, sometimes in 2 decades, sometimes a decade. Now that limbo, stage has been extended. Mm-hmm. the second negativity, the challenge was being with the COVID-19 was rising xenophobia and racism in the countries, and refugees and migrants were used to be the scapegoats of the government, and they adopted harsher policies, because there are a lot of reasons for that, because some majority of the countries in the region are not the signatories of 1951 convention, so they're not actually officially identified as refugees, but illegal migrants. So this created a big problem in rising, as I said, xenophobia and racism. With the borders closed, again, the third one, refugees were unable to access to their fundamental rights of claiming asylum. So closed borders meant that lots of people are stuck in their countries where the life and their liberties are under threat. A fourth one is the inability of access to health services. This is related with that their status as being migrants, but not registered migrants as refugees. So they really don't want to go to hospitals for these tests because they'll become visible, so they will continue to live in the shadows of the society without any fundamental rights to right to have health, access to the hospitals and healthcare. And as countries develop COVID vaccine rollout plans, many are silent and they're not eligible for that. So that's another negative thing. And of course, loss of jobs and livelihoods is there across the region. Because of the economy, now they're unable to pay their rent, afford the food, and even to send money to their relatives there, their home countries. So these are, in a nutshell, the negativities. The positive part is specifically related to work I'm doing about the education in emergencies. Within a very short period of time, as universities, we've managed to, move our campuses to online platforms, even with 1 or 2 days when the lockdowns hit. And of course, we were very lucky coming with very, well-established institutions. But lots of universities couldn't manage to do this thing. Yet, they managed to do it online teaching, by connecting, like we're doing right now, rather than, recorded ones. But this gave us a hope as our, group of, academics or consortium or institutions working on education emergencies, that now there is more hope to include displaced youth to this virtual platform. Yes, previously there were, blockages for them to come and have the education and the campuses, but I don't think that's kind of an excuse anymore. This gives us a big hope to come up with creative partnerships between universities where the displaced communities can benefit from this, but not only the displaced communities, lots of communities based on different reasons are being denied to have higher education. So, so including them, refugees will be, or asylum seekers or stateless or internally displaced, I'm using refugee as a kind of an umbrella term here, have more opportunity to have access to higher education, which is a basic human right, actually. So these are, very, again, brief information to your question.
Thank you so much for that kind of overview and summary of what you're doing. And it's really nice for us at the New Zealand Chamber to be able to help you drive some awareness of what's a great partnership, I think, between Singapore and New Zealand institutions. Is there any kind of final remarks that you'd like to say? How can say New Zealand Chamber members or anyone watching this, how can they help?
Definitely. Thank you again, Rachel. We really want to act as CAPERS as a platform to bring different different stakeholders together, to think, to brainstorm, to vision about future, because the future is not that good when it comes to displacement, and the numbers what the experts are projecting based on the climate change, which will lead more conflicts in the region. So we have to act now. And for this, as academics, we can't do it alone. We need businessmen, we need engineers, we need policymakers, we need visionaries, futurists, all from different backgrounds to come together and to think and to plan and be proactive for humanity. So, and another mission of CAPERS is to not only to bring different stakeholders together, but to do major planning. And I can't think of a better place to start with the Chamber of Commerce, where the New Zealand businessmen, cooperative representatives of civil society living in Singapore to start this partnership. So we are planning to bring civil society and business circles and academia together. So we're also very happy to connect in small groups of your members, whether it's to set up not only share our mission and vision, but at the same time to hear from them how they would like to collaborate with CAPERS, such an institution. What are their needs as corporates? How we can contribute with our knowledge. So definitely I see a big potential. And again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to introduce CAPERS.
No problem. Thank you, Go, and we'll make sure that we share the contact details and all that kind of thing, so people can get in touch if they want to. So yeah, thank you once again for your time.
Pleasure.